That was just a little something there. It was maybe a little Japanesey, I think, maybe a little bit Oriental, I suppose. But what I'm talking about tonight is triggers. Now, when you buy an electronic drum kit, the first thing you want to do is get all your typical drum set sounds. You can have a jazz drum kit, you can have a rock drum kit, the metal drum kit, this drum kit, the techno drum kit, all of this business and all that. But I'm not quite talking about that. That's a bit taken for granted. I mean, you know, when you buy an electronic drum kit, the first sounds that you get, or that you want, is to get an authentic, as authentic as you can, you know, good old drum kit, and play along and do all your studies on the electronic kit. And away you go. So, you know, like when I was coming up in the 1970s, I used to get kicked off the drum kit at 8 o'clock, you know, so I'd move over to guitar. So that's what I do now, is guitar and drums. And with an electronic drum kit, if you've got it in your room and you've got your headphones on and all that, you can go, you know, the worst you'll get is practice pad sounds, you know, that kind of thing. So you can go like the clappers until, you know, whenever, you know, sort of thing. And what I'm talking about now is the actual triggering of sounds, okay? Now, what I've done, I'll take you through the process again. I've got very reasonably priced drum triggers, some of the basic ones. I mean, they're something like only $30 or $40 each. These ones, you can even get them cheaper than that. Some of the more high-priced ones can go up to 100 and 120, where you've got the double ones and all that. But, you know, just hit your local music store and all that sort of stuff and see what the best price you can get for them. And then what I'm doing is I'm just sending them off to a typical interface unit. What that is simply where I have the inputs, which is just your typical guitar jack. And what I'm doing is going into an interface unit, USB out into my computer, and I'm just using the sounds that are in my computer. And there you go. Nothing too highfalutin at all, and deliberately so too, because this is a community TV show. What I'm wanting to do is not tell you to go out and buy $5,000 this and $10,000 this. This drum kit behind me here is built up over 20 years, you know, that kind of thing. And the reason it's like this is because this week I'm doing triggers, next week I'll do jazz, the last week I did rock and roll, and the week before that I did classical, so I need the equipment for the different genres. If I did a cover band gig, I'd just take a little 5-piece out. But what I'm talking about is essentially being able to trigger different sounds, and what I'm doing here is triggering arpeggios and scales and the like. So I'm not going to necessarily trigger another drum, you know, double up the drum sound and all this sort of business. What I'm actually doing is triggering different sounds. So for this, and what I'm doing here over this side is what's called a Phrygian Mode, which gives you a flamenco kind of sound. Earlier in the year I did a bit on Indonesian gamelan music, and they use a P-log scale, which is very similar sort of thing. So if you want to get flamenco and want to get Spanish on guitar, use a Phrygian Mode sort of thing. So what I'm doing is starting to use unison things that I've done in the past. What I'm doing here is actually doing a little bit of reverse engineering, so to speak, because the reason I'm using an F-sharp minor arpeggio here is because it's literally easier to tune. Once I've tuned the drums, It's easier to tune the triggers to the drums than it is the drums to the triggers, sort of thing. So what I did was I already had a drum kit that I had tuned to the way that I like it at the minute. I do change things around a little bit, depending on the gig and the whatever it might be, the show. But I'm pretty happy with the sound of the drums as they are just at the minute. And what I'm doing is, or what I decided to do for the show, is actually use one of the presets to actually just tune the triggers to the drums rather than the drums to the triggers, if you know what I mean. So that's what I did. I did the drums first. Now, a little bit of history of this. What I'm doing is not so much in the realm of the typical electronic drum kit kind of thing, although this is it's what I'm to a certain degree talking about. But really, the crux of the show is a little bit about the history of triggering. Okay, and the first, what we call the percussion synthesizer, was actually made for Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and it really was showcased on their Brain Salad Surgery album from 1973, pretty widely regarded as their masterpiece album. And what Carl Palmer had made for him, or had made for his work, is essentially doing all these weird and wonderful sort of right out there synthesizer sounds, but triggered. They were triggered, special sort of sequencer and going into synthesizers. Keith Emerson, the keyboard player, was the first keyboard player to use a Moog synthesizer on stage live. They thought it was too bulky and all sorts of, too many problems to take out on the road, but he did. And any kind of old footage, you'll see this monolith of a synthesizer with all these little leads going in. So not only was he the virtuoso keyboard player, but he could do it one handle and then re-plug and get everything set up. In the days before presets, he didn't actually just have to press a button and he got violins. He had to actually go like that. And I always remember one interview with him in 1978 where they spent oodles of money on this unit that gave him, wait for it, 8 presets. I've got a typical little tiny, cheap as you like laptop computer that gives me literally hundreds of presets now. But in the day it was 8. I've got 8 of them, given that like the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's album in 1967 was done on an 8-track, top of the line, that kind of thing. So we've come a long way. So what I'm talking about is Carl Palmer was the first to use percussion synthesizers, so to speak. One of the great exponents of what you'd call hybrid drums, I suppose, where you've got drums like this, to the point where he does cover tunes and all that, is Akira Jimbo, who came out about 12 months ago. I didn't get to see him. I have met him, though, a long time ago. But he does a lot of stuff where he'll just be the one-man band, so to speak. He'll play the drum beat. Like he might have a normal... something like that. Along those lines, and then you can come up with different things. That's enough for that. More after the break, but the two guys, decades apart, the first Carl Palmer of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Brain Salad Surgery, the track Toccata, which was their take on a great piano concerto by Alberto Ginastera, from a South American composer. and his piano concerto there, the Toccata. Okay, back after the break.